project is my 1974 Yamaha RS-100. It was a two-stroke street bike. Yamaha produced in North America. It was like the little brother to the RDs. It was one of the cheapest bikes you could buy at the time, 100cc two-stroke. I have some pretty neat ideas for this one. Going to be upgrading the suspension. I've already laced up a set of 17-inch wheels onto wide rims so I can run modern street bike rubber. Got rid of the drum brake on the front. That's a Honda CBR 1100XX rotor and a Suzuki Savage caliper, and that's a Suzuki GT550 front hub. I did have to machine up a little adapter to adapt the rotor to the hub. And I had some pretty interesting ideas for the motor. I'd really like to adapt a DT80 big bore cylinder onto it. The bolt spacing's a little off, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to easily, but I'm always up for a challenge, so probably going to pick one of those up and see if I can't figure that out. But today's project is adding gussets and welding this frame. So there are some absolutely horrific boogery welds all over this frame in some like fairly structural areas, and also some spots where they just kind of skipped out on welding stuff to it. So I'm getting rid of this bracket, so I'm going to put a new bar in here. I'm going to add a bar in down here, maybe even one up further up at the head tube here. And yeah, just go over some of these welds and try and just make them not look so goobery. I mean, like, that's crazy. There's like barely any penetration right there. So, yeah, I mean, like, looking just goobery welds everywhere. Again, this was the cheapest bike you could buy. Fully stamped production. So I'm gonna fix some stuff up. So next step is remounting the motor back in the frame. I'm going to cut this bracket off, and I'm just going to put a piece of tube in here instead of the bracket. Mounting the motor back in the frame, making sure I have enough clearance for the exhaust pipe to come out, and I'm going to add a crossbar across as well on the lower spars. is all of that work done. Some of the welds were absolutely terrible. Like there was barely any penetration from original. So quite a bit better now. And I welded it in stages. You know, I'd weld a section here, let the whole thing cool down, and weld over here, let the whole thing cool down. So it took quite a while. So next up is putting the engine in. So you may be wondering why I want to put the engine in before I start welding in braces here. A, because I welded all this, I want to make sure that the frame didn't move around. It looks like it didn't. It went in there quite nice and everything's where it should be. I will have to like recheck the frame, make sure I didn't tweak it around too much when I was welding it, but I went very slowly, so I feel like it's probably okay. But yeah, so if I didn't want to weld a bar in here and then have there be a giant gap between these two. Then I have the motor bolted in and then do all my measurements for the crossbar that I want to put in. And same here, just make sure that these all cinch up nice and then just cut this out. And I don't have this sealed up while this motor does technically run. It's going to be probably completely taken apart and cleaned and regasketed and seals and stuff before it goes back in, so I'm not too worried about grit and grime getting inside of it at the moment. So I'll put this over on the bench and cut up some tubes. There we go. So there's my bar fitted in. It's in pretty square enough anyway. And I have these just kind of tight, not super tight, so that you can still get the motor out. It's not going to be like jammed on there, super wedged in. So weld that one up and move on to the back one. Out because it had a cool radius to it, and that's it mocked in there. So I'm gonna quickly weld that one in there, and I think that's it for the frame for now. I have some bracketry I gotta make and stuff, but I need to get the seat all fixed up before I can actually finish those brackets. So there we go, it's all welded in. Frame is pretty much done at this point. A few little tabs I gotta weld onto it. I have to try and make some foot pegs because the old ones bolt on in a weird way. But for now, that is done. So I have to also have to try and see what I'm gonna do for paint or powder coat. But so I still have the swing arm I have to do as well. Definitely pretty anemic. I'd love to make one out of aluminum. I just don't know if I have the time to do that currently. But definitely gonna add some gusseting to this and weld this up as well. So that's pretty much it for this episode. I will be doing more on this bike in the future. I've got quite a few things I need to make for it, do some repairs to the gas tank and paint the gas tank and some other stuff. So until then, take care.